And joining me today to have this conversation is Lori Yusishen, a therapist here with us today. Thank you very much for coming down, Lori.
Thanks.
Now, marriage has kind of changed a lot over the years, right? I mean, it's a lot different for us today than it was perhaps for our parents or our grandparents. What are some of those differences now?
Well, I think we have really higher expectations around commitment and intimacy and the conversations and compatibility now, much higher demands than 50 years ago. And I don't think the skills that we have or the resources available to couples have really kept up with the pace of the kinds of demands that we have around relationships. Okay,
interesting point there. And so you've passed along some areas that we should be having conversations before you get into the marriage, tying the knot, and all of a sudden it's too late to realize that you guys are on totally different pages. So let's talk about some of those areas now. Parenting and kids, lots of questions can come up here.
Sure. What you want to talk about is conversations with your partner as well as with yourself about what are your ideals around having children. 50 years ago, that wasn't a conversation you had. You just got married and started having babies.
Right.
Now you want to talk about whether you even want babies, how many you might want, what kinds of values you want to instill into your children, and talk about your values around discipline and how you might work around that.
Perfect. Okay. Probably even some, as you know, who's looking after the babies, right? Whether or not you're going to involve daycare or if somebody is going to be staying home from work. Again,
right.
Something that you should be discussing along the way.
Right.
Money, another topic, and I think they say that money is one of the biggest flare-ups or cause for flare-ups in a marriage.
Well, money is power, and generally the person who has the more money or the higher income is in a better position and has more advantages, and so is in a more powerful position in the relationship. So it's important to talk about what that power feels like in the relationship, how you're going to deal with the power differences, as well as how you're going to deal with day-to-day finances. Are you going to have a joint account where all your money gets pulled into one account? Are you going to have different accounts? Are you going to have both? And how, if you have a difference in income, how are each of you going to pay for day-to-day expenses? Are you still going to split it down the middle, or are you going to have a ratio of, according to your income?
All right.
We also want to talk about how you're going to make decisions around purchases, major purchases, minor purchases. How are you going to talk about that and make decisions around it?
Okay, so have that conversation so that everything is clear and you're not going to run into surprises down the road. Conflict styles, and this is something that we actually talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I was here a couple of weeks ago talking about fair fighting guidelines, and that's a good place to start. I think it's up to us, because there's not the resources available to us and we have higher expectations. It's up to us to start learning and developing our own skills. You also want to pay attention to what kind of style you have. Are you the kind of person who likes to yell and argue and you're used to that kind of conflict?
The high drama sort of.
High drama, yeah. High conflict, volatility. Are you the kind of person who really avoids conflict at all costs? And so you want to pay attention to that as well. Or are you someone who really likes to resolve things amicably? And it's not that one is better than the other, it's when you have two different styles competing, how are you going to work that out together?
Okay, and I guess knowing where each other is coming from and understanding what it is that, or the styles that each other has, right?
You can have an appreciation for each.
Right. Division of labor. What's this about?
Well, it's about the housework, I think, and I think you need to accept pretty early on that whoever cares about it more is going to be the one who's going to be doing more of it. And it's a hard thing to accept. I know that in my own relationship, it probably took me about 5 years to figure out that my partner is just not going to see and prioritize the things in the house that need to be done in the same way that I do.
Okay.
So you have to figure out how you're going to deal with that and how you're going to divide up that labor, because it's also not fair for one person to take it all on. So you can start with really, what do you care about? Do you care about the housework? Do you care about the nice lawn? Do you care about how the laundry is done? And that's where you can start assigning the responsibility.
Sure, and when you understand each other's priorities, makes it a little bit easier to come to an understanding and move forward from there. Those are just a couple of points that you should be having a discussion on before you get married. Lori, big thanks to you for coming down and having this discussion with us. We appreciate it. We're going to be taking a break here on Breakfast Television, coming back with plenty more.